Hey everyone. The tragedy of Kevin Hart is one of the most heartbreaking and misunderstood stories in modern entertainment. A story not just about fame, fortune, and laughter, but about the toll that endless ambition, public scrutiny, and personal mistakes can take on a man who built his career by making the world laugh while quietly carrying unimaginable pain behind the curtain. From the outside, Kevin Hart's life seems like the ultimate success story. The kid from North Philadelphia who rose from poverty, absent fatherhood, and neighborhood violence to become one of the most successful comedians and actors on earth. But behind the smile, the energy, and the relentless drive, Kevin's journey has been marked by betrayal, near-death experiences, family wounds, and an ongoing battle between his public persona and the man he's always struggled to be in private. To understand the depth of his tragedy, you have to start with the boy who became Kevin Hart. Raised by his single mother, Nancy Hart, in a rough part of Philadelphia, Kevin grew up watching her work tirelessly while his father, Henry Hart, battled addiction and incarceration. He has often spoken about how his humor became his survival mechanism, a shield against pain, a way to diffuse chaos. But as his fame grew, that same sense of humor became both his armor and his prison. Kevin built his entire brand around positivity, hustle, and laughter, telling fans to stay in your lane, grind hard, and keep moving forward. Yet few realized that much of this came from fear. Fear of losing everything, fear of not being enough, fear of failure haunting a man who seemed unstoppable. When he finally made it in Hollywood, his rise was meteoric, sold-out arenas, blockbuster films, million-dollar deals, and a reputation as the hardest-working man in show business. But the higher Kevin climbed, the more fragile his foundation became. His personal life started to crumble under the weight of success. His first marriage to Torrey Hart, with whom he shared 2 children, ended in public chaos, marked by infidelity and bitterness that spilled into tabloids and interviews. Kevin admitted to cheating, expressing deep regret years later, but the damage to his family and reputation lingered. Even as he remarried to model Eniku Parrish, his old habits resurfaced. In 2017, a sex tape scandal nearly destroyed him, a moment that Kevin would later describe as one of the darkest of his life. What made it even more painful was that the man who tried to extort him over the tape was one of his closest friends, someone from his inner circle whom he trusted completely. That betrayal broke him in ways success couldn't repair. The world mocked, his marriage nearly collapsed, and his carefully crafted image of a loyal family man shattered overnight. He would later tell interviewers that the experience taught him who his real friends were. But it also showed him the loneliness of fame, how isolation grows when the laughter stops. Then came the car crash in 2019, the accident that almost ended his life. Driving in the hills of Malibu, his car veered off the road and rolled down an embankment, leaving him with severe back injuries that required spinal surgery and months of rehabilitation. Doctors told him he was lucky to be alive. For weeks, he couldn't walk without assistance. That accident, as Kevin described, stripped away everything. His ego, his workaholic identity, and even his sense of invincibility. He said that lying in a hospital bed, unable to move, forced him to confront who he really was without the fame, without the grind. He realized that for years he'd been running from pain, from childhood scars, from the pressure to always perform. He said, God basically sat me down. The tragedy wasn't just the physical pain. It was the emotional breakdown that came with it, realizing how fragile life was, how easily he could have left behind his children, his wife, and a legacy built on laughter but not peace. And just when it seemed he was rebuilding, another blow came. In 2018, Kevin was selected to host the Academy Awards, a dream job, the pinnacle of entertainment recognition. But within days, old tweets resurfaced, jokes made years earlier that were criticized as homophobic. The backlash was instant and brutal. Kevin issued an apology, but the damage was done. He was forced to step down as host. The experience left him shaken. He later said it made him feel erased by the very culture he'd helped entertain for decades. It was another lesson in how quickly public love can turn to public condemnation. He was tired of apologizing for mistakes that no longer reflected who he was, but the controversy made him more guarded, less trusting, and more isolated from the very fans who once adored him. In interviews, he began revealing more glimpses of the pain behind his smile, admitting that fame had cost him friendships, privacy, and at times his mental health. He spoke about therapy, about trying to be more present with his kids, and about learning to love himself beyond his achievements. But even as he evolved, tragedy continued to shadow him. In 2022, he lost his father, Henry, after years of reconciliation and healing. Kevin had worked tirelessly to rebuild their relationship after decades of estrangement, forgiving the man who once caused him so much hurt. When his father died, Kevin said he felt both peace and sorrow. Peace that they had mended their bond, but sorrow that he could never fully know the man he had longed for as a child. In one heartbreaking reflection, he said, "You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you need to be free." That sentiment in many ways defined Kevin Hart's entire life. A man constantly trying to free himself from pain, from guilt, from the image the world expects him to be. The irony is that Kevin Hart's tragedy isn't about failure. It's about success that came too fast, too hard, and too heavy for one human being to carry. The more he achieved, the more he lost. Time with his family, trust in friends, and moments of genuine peace. His laughter, once his weapon, became his mask. He has said that he still feels haunted by the need to make people happy, to be on all the time, because the moment he's quiet, the sadness creeps in. Behind every joke lies the story of a man who has seen death, betrayal, public humiliation, and personal rebirth, yet still wakes up every day determined to make someone smile. And maybe that's the real tragedy of Kevin Hart, that the man who gives joy to millions still struggles to find it within himself. But it's also what makes his story profoundly human, because in the end, Kevin Hart's tragedy isn't just about pain. It's about perseverance, redemption, and the fragile balance between who we are and who the world wants us to be. It's a reminder that even those who seem to have it all often fight the darkest battles in silence, and that sometimes the loudest laugh comes from the deepest wound. Thanks for watching.